Hola, hola, ¿qué paso? What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of The Switch Show. I am your wonderful and amazing host, Maliseh Chinonye, and it is my absolute pleasure to be bringing you another episode. If this is your first time listening, welcome. Where have you been? We're glad to have you. If this is not your first time listening, OG, what's going on? Wagwan. Yeah. So, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What's your day looking like? Or your night, depending on whenever you might be listening to this. So, how did your day go? How's your day going? Has the day even started for you? How's it going? Genuinely, I'm waiting. Cool. All right. I hope that you have the strength to push through the day, and I hope that your day served you well. If you're listening to this in the night, and if you're about to go to bed, I hope that you sleep and have the best of dreams. Today, we're going to be talking about an important Topic. What's topic? Topic. And I've titled it "Strings Attached." All right. You've heard that phrase before, right? No strings attached. Probably, you probably have. People use it usually when they want something casual, no commitments, no drama, just vibes. But here's the thing: there are always strings. No matter how much we want to play it, no matter how much we want to rationalize it, there are always strings. Emotional strings, mental strings, and sometimes even spiritual strings. Sometimes visible, sometimes invisible. Sometimes they are gentle threads of memory, and other times they are heavy chains that pull us back into moments we thought we had already escaped. This is that episode where we dive into breakups, soul ties, and this whole complicated thing we call moving on. Welcome once again to the Switch Show. This one's called Strings Attached. And we're going to start off with the very first thing. What are strings? Well, to the average, I want to say to the average untrained ear, maybe to the hyper Christianese, strings refers to the instrumental they use for prayers. When they hear strings, their mind immediately goes to instrumentals for prayers. I don't blame you. That's good. It's good that that's what you think about. All right, it's fantastic. Some people, to musicians, they think of guitar strings, think of stringed instruments, guitars, harps, all kinds of guitars, basically ukuleles and the rest. But we are not talking about music or anything relating to that today. We're talking about strings in a particular context. So, what do I mean by strings? Strings are the emotional, mental, and sometimes spiritual ties that connect us to people. All right. Think about it like familial connections, for example. What connects you? You could say blood. They say the definition of family is people connected by blood, marriage, or adoption. Blood, marriage, adoption are three strings, so to say, in this context. They connect you to the people you call family. Sometimes it's sharing a surname. In the case of adoption, sharing a surname means that there's a string connecting you guys. There's a string connecting you. Familial connection, of course, genetics and everything is a string. There is also friendships. All right. In romantic relationships, it kind of looks like playlists you made together, while you were dating someone, and for some reason you cannot delete that playlist. It could also be you knowing what their favorite order is at a restaurant, maybe a restaurant you guys went to while you guys were in school or something like that. It could also be like me in my own case, memorizing their phone numbers. So even though you tell yourself, I'm going to let go or have let go of this person, when you remember that person, their phone numbers just come up. And that becomes a difficult and tricky situation to navigate, because not only do you've convinced yourself that you've blocked them on social media, you've unfollowed them across all socials, you've even deleted your number, wiped your phone of pictures of them, but you still remember their phone number, because you are just cursed or blessed with the gift of remembering numbers. That is a string. For friendships, it could look like inside jokes, the late night calls, the years of trust, and having a shoulder to lean on when the going gets tough. It could be the person you call when anything big or grand happens in your life. It doesn't necessarily mean good things, even bad things, when things are bad, when things are good, when things are great, when things are ugly. It could be the person you call. That is a string. So oftentimes when the context, or the context of the phrase "no strings attached" is usually, or many times, used in a romantic scenario, or it's used to more in the context where you're, so hold on, let me read it word for word how I wrote it down in my, I want to say journal, but yeah, my notebook. So here I said, strings are often used in the context of something used to curry favor, or an idea presented as a mutually beneficial ordeal. And oftentimes it is neither beneficial nor is it mutual. And I want you to take the first part before we delve into the crux of the situation and why it is this topic is particularly of a concern or interesting to me. It is many times an idea. So I was searching for the definition of what it means to curry favor. Basically means, and pardon my language, to kiss ass. Nigerians call it eye service. It's basically something you do for something. You do something because you want something in return. So is one of the reasons why acts of service as a love language is my least spoken love language. And I say spoken in quotes. I don't think, or in my own case, based on how I have seen acts of service, I don't think acts of service are independent of strings or independent of demands. Someone doesn't do an act of service just because, and this is my own opinion, take it with a grain of salt or plate of rice, whatever fits your diet. I do not think that acts of service are pure. You can have the purest intentions, or you can have the purest motive, but it's only 99.9% pure. There's never 100% purity. So that 0.1%, and you might say, oh my goodness, bro, that's reading too deep into it. 0.1% is still a chance. Even if it's 99.99, 0.01%, it's still a chance. Even if it's infinitesimal, it is still a probability, it's still a chance, and there's a chance that something like that could happen. Now, this is not me saying that all acts of service have ill intentions or ulterior motives. What I'm trying to make us understand is that not everything that is free is actually free. Not everything that is free is actually free. Because something is presented to you on a platter of gold, or it's given to you, the idea that it is free is presented to you, doesn't mean it is free. I have once heard someone say, and this was in the context of salvation, that because there wasn't a price doesn't mean there isn't a prize. So because something is free doesn't mean it's cheap. Do you understand? So there is always a cost to pay, and that cost, that's the string. And then there are soul ties. And the conversation around soul ties is particularly interesting to me because the very first time I heard of the expression or the phrase soul ties was when my mom was, typical kid fashion. You probably eavesdropped on an adult conversation and you heard the word soul ties and it just stuck. I can't remember how old I was, but I knew that I was old enough to understand certain conversations or be curious enough to hear these words and do my own research or learn more about this or find a way to chip in the question when my either my mom or my dad or any responsible listening adult could chime in on it, basically. And so when I heard of the concept of soul ties for the first time, they were talking about in the context of sexual relations. And it got me really, really spooked because, and I tell you this, if you're listening to this, go to YouTube and just type in soul ties. Go to YouTube and type in soul ties. They'll probably bring soul ties Christian or Christians on soul ties or something like that. I can almost with 100% certainty guarantee that every single video you will see will be centered around sexual intimacy. And soul ties aren't just about sexual intimacy. Now, don't get me wrong. Do not go around frolicking and, as a guy, depositing your seed in everything that moves in a skirt, or as a woman being a vessel to I don't know, I don't want to make it sound weird, but don't just go around hooking up with everyone. And when we say hooking up, it mostly refers to coitus or sexual relations, intercourse. But hooking up sometimes isn't just about intercourse. There's mental intercourse, there's emotional intercourse. So before a physical intercourse happens, there's a mental and emotional one. And there's also a spiritual one. And that is how soul ties are formed. That's how soul ties are formed. And this is in the aspect of sexual relations. Now, in non-sexual relations, emotional, mental, and spiritual connections can still be formed. There's a way you get so attached to someone that you can't fathom life without them. Some people will say that's it forms part of why people's marriage vows. I can't picture my life without you. God brought you into my life and it all just made my life more beautiful, and that's fantastic. Absolutely love that. I love love. I'm an advocate for love. Hear me when I say that's a string, that's a soul tie. And if you're in the union of marriage, that's cool. But outside the union of marriage, it's very, very tricky to have that kind of intimacy with someone, even if it's with a friend. Because if that friend leaves, what happens? Those bonds, the soul ties basically are bonds that are deeper than logic. Sometimes intimacy, sometimes trauma, sometimes just shared purpose. And I say this to myself. I don't know how often I say this, but I strongly believe that nobody has an identity in the way we think of identity, because we do not leave any relationship that we form, platonic or otherwise, we never leave them clean. We carry pieces of people with us. We don't walk away from, and that's the thing. There will always be strings in a way attached to the certain people that we've interacted with across our lives, across areas of our lives. That can be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. We'll get to that. So I believe that fundamentally we are made up of the conversations and experiences and interactions. Fragments of these things make us into who we are. And so our idea of identity isn't what it is, isn't what it actually is. And we're going to talk about identity. This is not the conversation for identity. We're going to talk about identity. So you might want to follow, turn on your post notification so that you're alerted when that episode drops. Alright? Now, let's talk about breakups. Breakups beyond romance. When we hear breakup, we think couples or romantic relationships. But breakups happen in other spaces too. There are friendship breakups, friend breakups. Those that can hurt, those that can hurt more than romantic ones. Hold on. Sorry, give me a bit. I know I have a lot of typos. Okay, we're good to go. Friendship breakups are those that hurt more than romantic ones. Because who do you call when your best friend isn't your best friend anymore? There are community breakups. When you leave a church, a group, a family you choose, it's not just about the person you lose, it's the version of yourself that is the version of your is it's losing the version of yourself you were when you were with them. Do you understand? Do you understand? So it's like you spent your whole life with these people, maybe a group or a fellowship or a community, and then for some reason you have to leave them. There happens to be a breakup. Do you think that you'll ever be able to sever the strings? Do you like actually do you think you ever be able to sever the strings? Why this topic even made more sense recently to me was I saw a video, and I do not know how factual it is, but what I'm saying is subject to scrutiny and investigation, all right? But somebody was talking about the psychological implications of being attached to people, and says it takes the brain 8 years to fully completely move on from someone. 8. That's ridiculous. 8 years. Think about it like this. When a child is born, think about when that child is born to when the child is 8 years old. Think about the growth. Think about the experiences. Think about all the things. The child goes from being completely oblivious to becoming a moral being with agency by the time they are 8. 8 freaking years. And sometimes we think that for romantic relationships, we think that, oh, I can move on and be friends. I don't think you can be friends with people you've been in relationships with. I think you can be acquaintances because, of course, you're not going to say, oh, I'm a complete stranger with this person, or I do not know them again. So the way I define acquaintances is that you know that they exist. But I don't think you can be friends again, because even if it's for a fraction of a second, if the same amount of attention and detail and care and concern is directed either way, either your way or their way, those feelings reemerge, and you're wondering, I thought I had moved on, but it's so hard to move on. You start seeing people wax poetry. Isn't it strange how people can change from friends into lovers, from strangers to friends, friends into lovers, and strangers again? See, it's crazy. And think about this when you think about breakups, and I'm talking across the board. A breakup isn't just about losing someone. It's grieving the possibility of what could have been. The trips you thought you'd take, the milestones you imagined, all those things. And grieving that, it hurts. It hurts like crazy. Okay, you've said all these things about breakups. So how do I move on? Let's talk about closure. This for me is a very triggering. I don't want to say triggering to make it sound like I'm trauma dumping, but anyway, I use it in the sense that it awakens this part of my brain that was always seeking closure. Oh my goodness, I don't know if you heard the loud honk. I'm so sorry. I'm recording this in the night and so trucks are moving. So apologies if you heard a loud honk. Oh my goodness. Anyway, closure is hmm, it's something that everybody wants. It's that one. I just need to know, why did you leave? I thought we had a good thing going on. I mean, I hadn't seen you. You came back into my life. I confessed my love to you, and then you just left. I just need to know why. If you tell me why, I think I'll be fine. We think of it as a magic wand. Just wave it over, all the problems, and abracadabra, it's gone. But here's the thing, closure isn't always real. Sometimes the person can't give the answers we want. Sometimes they don't even want to give us any answers for their own selfish reasons. And I think closure is selfish as well. Because think about it. You need closure. What if that person's closure is distance? And we are looking for that one perfect conversation or one last conversation. What if that one last conversation rehatches feelings for this person and you moved on because you got the nail in the coffin and that person hasn't? So, in many ways, everybody is doing this for their own selfish reasons, and sometimes selfish isn't a bad thing. And sometimes, even if they did grant you that conversation, it wouldn't really change how you feel. So here's the question. Is closure something we get from someone else? Or something we create for ourselves? Truly, because moving on is less about what they say and more about what we decide. Because after the entire conversation, it still comes down to us. If we want to hold on like by a hair's breadth. If we want to hold on, we're still going to hold on. We're still going to hold on. So really, it closure does closure really exist? And why has society attached so much value to this one last conversation? Sometimes closure is sex. Some people, one last kiss, one last hookup. Why? What does that change? What does that affect? Yeah, sure, sometimes closure looks like a deep talk. Other times, it could be silence, distance, even acceptance. Sometimes closure is saying, okay, that chapter is over. Fin. Finito, c'est fini. And I saw something because this is something I've had to, I feel like I can share this, but this is something I've had to deal with recently. Someone I knew who I held in my heart as someone I deeply loved and cared about. We hadn't spoken for a while. I called her on her birthday. I wished her a happy birthday and everything. And then we got talking again. Feelings, and at least on my own part, feelings were rehashed. And I started thinking, because there's no relationship romantically. I said, okay, maybe this is something I could pursue. At the same time, I told myself that I wasn't ready for something like that. I wasn't ready for a commitment yet because I'm not where I want to be emotionally. So I'm not going to hold on as much. And so when she I want to say ghosted, but more like she went distant. It became a struggle for me because I just needed to know, yo, if you don't want, we've talked about this. We had a conversation, a lengthy conversation that, yeah, we're going to find a way to make this work. Why not give me a call or a text and tell me, yo, I don't want to make anything work? And I'm not saying this, I'm not telling you this story as someone who is, or saying this as, oh yeah, I'm over it or something. No, I'm working through it. And I don't know why I shared it, but I feel like I had to share it. Maybe this is for someone, maybe someone is also working through something like that. It's tricky because you think that you love this person, you think that you care about them. And I'm always advocating that the value of love is not based on reciprocity. But it feels good to be wanted as well. You know, you want someone, you want them to want you. Sometimes reciprocity is nice, but sometimes you just need to move on with your life. I just need to move on, you know. You just need to move on. So how do we let go of these strings? You know, for some people it could look like deleting the number. Now, deleting numbers don't really work for me. They work for me over time if I let it be, but they don't work immediately because, like I said, if I care about you, if I care about you in a way that, you know, it mostly is in romantic relationships. I'm not just talking about my friends, because I have quite a number of friends and I don't think I can memorize everybody's number adequately. But my romantic relationships, if I care about you, I'm going to know your number so that in case don't have the ability to call you with my phone to check up on you or something, I could use another person's phone quite easily because I have your number tattooed in my head or inside my brain. Even if you had 3 different numbers, I was going to memorize every single one of them. And so deleting numbers is like going nuclear, blocking on socials, throwing out every semblance of that person, we want to discard. For others, it could be slowly. Journaling, could be praying, could be therapy. One thing I want you to realize from this is that sometimes the string isn't cut in one clean slice. Sometimes it just wears down over time. It's like a rope fraying. You've seen the end of a sweater, those knit sweaters or cardigans we had in primary school, where one thread comes loose and then you start pulling it, and the more you pull it, the more the knit is undone. Sometimes that's how strings are. It's lightly fraying and fraying and fraying and fraying, and then thread by thread it just goes off or goes away. And that's okay, because healing isn't forgetting, it's in remembering, but without the pain, without the sting. And if you believe in Jesus or you're a person of faith like myself, you know that there's something that comes with laying down those burdens. Jesus calls us to a life of laying down burdens, laying down weights. Weights in this instance, in the instance or in the context, is mostly sin. But we can use that idea to say that, okay, Lord, I'm laying down everything, not just the sin, but the weight of the emotions and the emotional baggage I am carrying that I'm left with. I want to lay everything down. I want to lay them down. I want to release myself of this. Sometimes it can be supernaturally instantaneous as a result of the Holy Spirit. And sometimes the Holy Spirit takes you on a journey. He doesn't just want you to poof. He's not a magician. There's a process There's a process, there's a becoming that happens in that process, and he wants you to go through that process. And at the end of the day, you find true freedom. So here's the thing. Strings may not always be bad. Sometimes they remind us that we are capable of connection. They remind us that we felt something, we shared something. Our ability to form bonds or to sew threads or to weave threads and strings is innate, and it is godly. Don't get you heard that right. It is godly. God wants us to make connections. God wants us to form bonds. You know, it's kind of how someone is somewhere and they have this sensitivity or this nudge to pray for a friend or something. It's because there is a string attached. There is a connection that isn't physical. It's transcendent in its wake. And that helps us in this context. And sometimes it's just remembering that, oh, I have a friend. We haven't spoken in a while. Hi, what's going on? How you do? What's in this up? What's happening with you? But not every string is meant to last forever. Some keep us grounded. Others keep us trapped. Wisdom is knowing the difference. So I'll leave you with this question. What strings are you still holding on to? And which ones do you need to let go of? Think about it. Good? Solid. Thank you for listening to The Switch Show. Thank you for listening to this episode. I implore you to share if this resonated with you. Yeah. Share. We grow, we heal, we keep moving. And moving train, it's like a locomotive, constantly moving, constantly pushing down barriers and breaking down walls and severing ties that are keeping us trapped. And so this is where healing starts. This is where illumination and lighting starts. It starts with you, it starts with me, it starts with all of us. Alright? Thank you for listening. Flip the switch and illuminate. I'll see you on the next episode. Bless.